I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to call the August 20th, 2020 Village Board meeting to order. And roll call shows Ally is excused. Everyone else is here. Number 3, agenda changes. Are there any? If not, we'll go to 4, consent agenda. A, August 6th, 2020 regular board meeting minutes. B, licenses and permits as presented. C, presentation of accounts and other claims against the village. Are there any questions?
The only question I had was with the temporary class retailer's license, just to keep everybody in the clear. So they're doing a fenced-in area behind Forks, and they're doing a fenced-in area at Pocket Park, but there's property in between. I just want to make sure that we, Chief, or how we're handling people walking from one location to the other was my question.
And I talked to Brett this afternoon, and he said he's gonna block it off in the front, so they can't go in the front, and they can only exit from the back door, you know, from the bar area.
And that'll be fenced now.
And that'll be all fenced in instead.
And his last event that he held was,
Yeah,
it was held very well.
I just know that there could potentially be some neighbors that would be concerned if there were open intoxicants going from one business to, you know, and, because it's not like Forks is right next to Pocket Park. If it was, it wouldn't be a big deal, but there's property in between there. That was my question. I just want to make sure we're in the clear.
Were there any complaints on his last event in July?
Well, that was a no intoxicants outside. That was,
Did that involve Pocket Park?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We did.
It was
Pocket
They had that band, high school band or whatever, those high school kids that were playing in Pocket Park. But we didn't have any, we thought that maybe there was gonna be like alcohol being, going across the street and people standing out on the sidewalk coming across the street. But we didn't have anything.
The Gene, was the license amended at that time? But was the license just on Forks property then?
I
That's a
don't
good question.
think we did, because there was not,
If there was no amendment that I recall.
no, but it was that they weren't supposed to have any drinks out if they were in Pocket Park. This is different. This is that they can have drinks in Pocket Park. If Parks was right next to Pocket Park, they leave the door, they go right into the park, but there's that gray area in between that I want to make sure that I love the idea of this event. I just want to make sure that there's not any violation, because somebody might walk from one business, walk across property, and then go to Pocket Park. If there's a fenced-in area that keeps that area, I don't know how to do that, but I just want to make sure that there's not going to be any violation for people attending that event.
It's all owned by.
It's all owned by.
It's all owned
It's all
by-
owned by him.
It's all
Okay.
owned by, I think, so.
And the reason for the fencing in is because, help me out on that, is that,
They don't want them wandering out onto the street.
Okay.
Right, and wandering all over the place, so they're keeping them contained,
Yeah.
which is very responsible.
yeah, no, I think Brett's gonna do a great job on this. I just don't want somebody attending the event to be questioned with what's going on.
And when they apply for a liquor license, they have to put on there on the description where they're selling it, serving it, and storing it.
Okay,
So we're doing just an amendment to their liquor license to include that area
okay,
for that day only,
okay.
so.
Okay.
That was the only question I had.
It's all owned by.
Not that I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call, Dan?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. Pre-registered citizens to be heard, and there are none. 6, committee reports. A, Public Facilities Committee, August 5th, 2020.
Was that in, I think Peter had asked me if that was in is that in the package? Did we ever get the minutes out for that?
Yeah, the minutes are out on the website.
Is it in our
I
packet
did
here?
not put them in the packet, no.
Okay.
My apologies, that should have been in the packet.
That's okay, no big deal. We had our meeting on August 5th, held at the Opera House Alliance
the Appleton Alliance people showed up, and we had a general discussion on what their role would be in providing maintenance, basic maintenance like cleaning and painting. If they wanted to do any other improvements that would be more in a major capacity, they'd have to check with Carl before they did any work to get his approval. Then we discussed briefly the use of the upper mezzanine for the church's overflow activities, as well as the use of other areas within the building for storage of church materials. And Julie, I think you were going to get some feedback from the Historical Society. Did you ever have
At
that?
this time during COVID, I'm not pulling a meeting together with a lot of our elderly citizens.
I thought we
mean,
talked about, you could just reach out and call them.
I can try.
Oh, okay.
I can talk to them,
All right.
but I just, right now with COVID, I just don't feel comfortable pulling our elderly population for a meeting.
And we talked about putting that as a committee of the whole
Right,
in September to
right.
discuss, so that'll give you another month to,
Yeah.
Then we
Try.
briefly talked about Alonso Park improvements that we want to do. Installing steel siding to the underneath portions of the pavilion, and the installation of a concrete pad for future concession and kitchenette room. And Carl and I discussed this. We thought we could get the work done probably the end of September, beginning of October if work.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. And then we're gonna fund, the Hortonville Civic Association will fund it. So the village employees, some of the village employees will be some of the work, but we're gonna pay for the materials. And that was it.
any
I just-
questions for Peter?
I just wanted to touch on that. I'm trying, they wanna do some painting in there. And they're talking about buying 200 of these chairs. They're similar to the ones here for the upstairs gymnasium. And Annie Renhurst can use them as well, so.
But they're purchasing them.
They're purchasing.
Right.
All right, we will move to 7, unfinished business from previous meetings, and there is none. 8, new business. A, potential discussion on administrator recruitment process. And I think we have decided to just let Dave contact his company, and we will go from there. B, property development request, Vandalay.
I'll take that. In front of you, I passed out the letter for extension from Vandalay Properties, from Charlie Luskey. Again, I think I'll give you time to read the letter, but basically they're asking for us to delay their construction start date. They're asking to start in the spring of 2021, and I guess administration's okay with that, Public Works is okay with that. But I'd like you to actually set a hard date, and don't give them 12 months, but give it to like May 1 or June 1. That way, if they fail to start again, and if we gotta go through the process of reclaiming the land, we can get somebody else in there who can start building before fall. If we wait till the end of August and then push it into September, that land might be fallow again for another year and a half, so. Again, I don't think anybody has an issue with the extension. It's just I'd like to see a firm date earlier in the year set for them. I don't know if anybody has any questions. You can see the subject parcel on the TV back there. It's our last remaining parcel in the industrial park. We've had requests from other companies that want the property. So I think we can owe them the courtesy of giving them an extension, but not too long.
Is this their first extension request?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was the original due date for building?
September 9th,
Of this year?
correct.
I guess I personally don't have a problem extending it to maybe April 1 or May 1. April 1, you can start construction easily enough. But the idea that, you know, they have to start by that time, or we'll have to, as you pointed out, reclaim the property.
Yeah, we have.
Potentially.
I'm sure that'd be something Bob would have to do, but
Yeah.
if he's still working with it. But Yeah, we'd have to go through that process, and then we'd have to turn around and try to resell it, so. I don't think it does anybody any justice to try to reclaim it right now.
So, in the process of reclamation, they purchased the property from us for a dollar value?
No.
No, 15.
What?
$15.
By that I
Yeah,
meant,
yeah, yeah.
not a single dollar, but for a value,
Yeah.
a monetary value. Do they forfeit the right, do they have to forfeit the right to get a rebate? Or
No, no. The industrial park rules, we get it back from them for that amount, right?
Oh, for that amount?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we sold it to them at a reduced price because it was 2 years ago and they promised, they did say they weren't gonna build there right away,
Right.
but they thought that was a reasonable time and so the village thought it was a good disposition.
If memory serves me right, you can correct me, didn't we sell it to them for like 15,000? Okay,
Yep.
so they get their 15,000 back,
Yep.
no interest,
Right?
interest free. And we have the ability to turn around and probably sell it for maybe more.
Yeah, so who knows?
Okay.
And it depends, right, depends on what somebody's gonna put in there.
Right.
We might sell it for $1 if their development is worthy of it, so.
Right.
So can you, in the amendment process, can you put stipulations in there? A forfeiture if they don't, I mean, you could go to 100% forfeiture if they don't break ground. I mean, 15,000 is not a lot of money for a business, and it's an incentive. Otherwise, it becomes a loss if they don't. So if they're, the reason for me saying that is if they're on the fence, because they're not going to tell us, right? If they're on the fence and they say, well, if things get better, then we're going to do it. If things don't, then we're not going to do it. Well, if we tell them, look, if you break ground by this time, by this date, we're going to give you an extension, everything's fine. If not, you're forfeiting the $15,000, we're going to reclaim the property, and then we're going to sell it to somebody else because we could have already sold it.
Right, we could do that.
And then if they are on the fence, then they might just say, well,
Right.
we really are not that committed to doing it, so let's move the process forward right now.
Right, Jim, we could do that via an agreement.
Yes.
So if that'd be our decision, right, they would actually sign an agreement to those terms, and you're right, if they don't want to sign it,
Then we'd know that
then,
they're not really committed to it, they're just
Yeah.
holding off just in case their business grows enough to be able to do the development.
So Carl, what do you think is a reasonable date?
April, May 1.
Okay.
They
Maybe we
said
should put
spring,
that in
and I
there.
guess we'll all do that.
But we need to get in touch with them ASAP because September 9th was supposed to be their,
We already were in touch with them.
no, but what I'm saying is we need to have a response.
To the
So if we're looking at
request.
doing an
Well-
agreement, that might take just a little bit longer.
Yeah, well, I guess that's up to Bob.
yeah, I mean, right. I think that'd be okay that, yet, we know at this point, they're not gonna meet the deadline. They're not in a position to do that, so I think if we communicated to them, the decision was on those terms, and, are you willing to sign an agreement to that effect? And we do that at a later meeting in
Okay.
September, that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's a reasonable way to just call their hand as to whether or not they're going to do it. If they're going to do it, it doesn't change anything. If they
Is
don't,
that, I mean,
then,
is that legal? Are we gonna face a court battle if we do that? I don't know.
No, I guess.
I know if they sign the agreement.
Well,
if they
well,
don't.
but so if they say, no, we don't want to sign that agreement, well, then the board presumably is saying we're not granting an extension. So then the terms, the original terms go into effect, which means we're gonna say, sign it back to us and here's your 15,000. Right?
Right.
That works.
yeah. I mean, and the only reason they're not gonna sign it is because they really don't have a firm commitment that they were gonna develop it in the first place.
Fair enough.
I think that's reasonable. That 15,000 is not that much for a business of that size.
So you're authorizing Bob to write something like that up?
I can't do it by myself, but that'd be my recommendation.
Yeah,
15,000 to them if they're strapped would be
Yep.
yeah.
But
an
it,
incentive.
So your motion would be just that the village is willing to extend it to April 1 for breaking of ground, or the beginning of construction, right? I mean,
Yeah.
April 1 as far as breaking of ground,
Can leave a ground broken for a long time.
but,
We can just say start construction. I
Yes,
think on there-
yeah,
Yeah.
construction. But if that date, the April 1 date is not met, that their money would be forfeited, and they must sign an agreement to that effect. Otherwise, we are denying their request for an extension.
I'll make that motion.
What Bob said.
Yes, what Bob said.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, Dan.
Got one question here. Well, then if we're breaking the ground, they'll be on the hook for building costs or for building permits also, and approval also.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that'll be some more cash there. But anyway,
Aye.
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 Motion carried. C, proclamation for Halloween trick-or-treating. I will just read, I, Jeannie Belisle, village president, hereby proclaim Saturday, October 31st, 2020, between the hours of 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. as the official time for Halloween trick-or-treating in the village of Hortonville.
What day of the week?
Saturday.
Okay.
We will move to D, R-22-20, budget amendments, expenditure restraint.
So Nathan, I'll help you guys with this one.
So basically, the Department of Revenue called us and said that we screwed up our expenditure restraint form. So we were looking at some of the issues with it, and basically, if we don't do these issues, we will be out our $49,000 for the year of 2021 due to increasing in expenditures. So this is basically would cure that. So basically what we did is initially in the budget, we did $40,000 in roll, where instead of doing that, we're gonna take $24,500 of that amount, and we're gonna transfer it into our future project reserves fund. Then from there, that money will then be applied into the capital project fund for funding of the projects. There were a few projects that were applied to the budget in the general fund last year that should have probably been in the capital project fund, which are basically for single, non-reoccurring year by year. So basically the codification, which is part of the 12,500 of the planning and mapping, the outdoor rec program fund was the other 3,500 of that. Then the police vehicle maintenance fund had that $12,000 was applied. Initially was for the saving of a vehicle, which we ended up purchasing outright. And so instead, that money was used for the squad, what do you call it, the squad?
Outfitting.
Yeah, just the setup of it. So basically, that would be applied into our capital project fund as well. So those expenses would be moved over there, and then we'd be compliant.
You just need a motion to
Correct.
approve this.
There's no budgetary impact of this.
It's just how the monies are divvied up
Right.
and accounted for. Then I will make a motion approving R-22-20, approving the 2020 budget transfers and amendments.
Second.
Roll call, Dan.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
That's a good question. How come Kirby
How-
Rose
yeah.
didn't catch this?
This isn't done by Kirby Rose.
Okay.
They don't really pay attention to this. This is usually done by the administrator.
Okay.
When was this done?
Early June,
Of this year?
correct?
Okay.
Thank you for fixing it, Nathan.
We'll go to E, amend R-14-20, pending and/or future assessments, Wildwood Phase 2.
I'll take that. You approved this previously. This is an amended resolution. There had to be some changes, basically at paragraph 10. As we had told you before, the $500 park fee is payable upon issuance of building permits for the lots. So that language had to be changed there. At paragraph 7, we added the last sentence, which made very clear that the final pavement, the top course, was to be assessed to the lot owners to eliminate any possible misunderstanding in that regard. And then the last revision on this is in the very first paragraph at the top, an unnumbered paragraph where it starts, "You are notified." We had standard language in there before that talked about street lighting, water mains, sanitary sewer, and so I've taken that language out, so it just talks about construction of street segments and the storm sewer system. And that there would be no other improvements there, of course, well, other than the roads themselves. Okay? So we're asking for approval of that amended notice, and then this will get recorded with the Register of Deeds so that all future owners of the Wildland 2 property will see this. Or have the opportunity to see this, let's say. Okay. Questions?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm aware, as well as some of these other board members, that previous payments or assessments of park fees were never put into a proper account. The funds just disappeared into some general fund. How can this board be assured that going forward, these fees that are assessed per park go into specified accounts so that we can use those funds to improve and upgrade the parks?
If you look, so in the audit, there's a line now that says park fees
Now,
so
there
there's
wasn't before.
right, that's my point. So we're actually tracking them now, Libby's tracking them, so they're all tied, and every year, the past 3 years, we've been adding into that.
How much is in that fund now? Do you know?
I think around 7,000.
Okay.
7,000?
So we can be assured that going forward on these lot sales, that those fees are posted properly? So those fees would be available for us to use to upgrade the parks? Okay.
So basically, this just went into the general fund and got lost.
We can go back a few years and pull, but only the ones that we actually have. Well, in our digital system, we can go and look back, I think, till 2016, and we can pull those.
Carl, if we go back far enough, wasn't there a time where we had monies in the park account and we actually said, well, gee, we don't really need this, and we moved them? I have a
I'd have to
recollection
look.
that we may have
We-
did that, but that's a while back, Peter.
Yeah, we've done a lot of weird stuff over the years, but I think what Peter's getting at is now Nathan and us, so we've created this dedicated reserve account, and it needs to stay there. But yeah, in the past, there was a little more freedom, I guess, to do whatever.
You know, and the other reason for my concern is that now that the town of Greenville's referendum failed, they won't be developing their water park. We had original plans to put a splash pad down at Miller Park and build another pavilion down there. Well, I want to make sure that we've got funds available, in addition to what other agencies or other nonprofits are raising.
Yep.
Okay? That's my concern.
That's good.
Thank you, sir. That's the only question I had.
Carl, just for my information here, if this talks about the second course of pavement, if there's any repairs to the first course of pavement before they put the top mat on?
I just lump it in with the final course and with the assessment. Yeah, there's no other way to do it.
Okay,
you know, you gotta edge mill, you've gotta do this, if you've gotta pull out a 10x20 pad, it's just part of the overall project.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve R-14-20, notice of pending and/or future municipal improvements and special assessments for such improvements.
I'll second, or let Jim.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. F is R-23-20 COVID amendment. And there are a few things in this that need to get probably cleaned up. Because, first of all, under number 3, it should say all general employees, because this does not include union contract employees, which are the police department. If they wish to go ahead with something in this order, it would be something they would have to do according to Article 28 of their union contract, which is 28.1, this agreement may be amended by mutual consent of the parties. Such consent and amendment shall be in writing. The undersigned parties by their representatives have to, then have to sign the amendment agreement if the board agrees with it. So we cannot change anything in a union contract. And that comes directly from when we were doing this MOU that we had at one point, and I talked to, Tom Schrank sent us this letter that I sent then on to all board members. And it said, we cannot just decide to change something for the union people. So this R-23-20, it would just be for our general employees.
That's true to a certain extent. The difference is, because I've been in talks with them as well, basically what they said was anything that's an actual benefit, the reason that you had to actually amend the initial one was because we were changing times. Because we were editing the amount that they were working in the initial one that was signed by a few months ago. So that's why you needed to get an actual amendment. This was already sent to them. I told them, I said, this is what's going to the board. If it changes, we'll send you another one with their signature. And he said it's pretty much okay as is, depending on how the union feels about it. So he doesn't have an issue with that, as long as they sign on. And under number 5, it says it's not agreed to unless by the collective bargaining representative in the village.
But then we are going against what they're saying, that they have to do this in writing. So we would have to have a separate one for them to be attached to their union contract, because when the attorney sent this to me and said the collective bargaining agreement is between the village board and the association. The village board votes on its ratification. The village board signs the agreement. Article 24 of the agreement indicates that any amendment or supplemental hereto should not be binding upon either party unless executed in writing the parties hereto. It says, you would not be able to bind the village to this MOU that they had sent out any more than you doubled the vacation benefit or added $1 an hour in wages. So that would also include, I would also think, sick pay.
Bob, have you had any, have you been part of any of this?
No, I just listened.
This came through from Attorney Macy at that time.
Okay.
That's who the administrator had used and questioned it. And so he is basically saying, we cannot change anything in their union contract by just saying, okay, we are doing a resolution, so now we can change it. They would have to come before the board, say the next meeting or whatever, and do it in writing that this is what they are asking for. The same thing that the general employees are getting.
Right. Well, you're saying, you know, so if Nathan had written confirmation from them, based on what he's reported, that
And with
would be
the,
sufficient.
and they would also have to have the unions okay, because there's 4 signatures on this always. It's the president, the administrator, the Hortonville Police Association, and also the representative, who is Brian Barr.
Right. And
So
he sent it to their
you would have
lawyer
to have
as well.
these signatures to do an amendment to this union contract.
Sure. So,
So, until we do, it's not legal.
well, that's fine.
Yeah.
So then Nathan could send this to them and have them include a letter of enclosure saying, if you approve, please sign herein and return. And that should be adequate.
And is it?
That was kind of the plan with this, was they weren't gonna get this unless it was actually signed on after the fact. That's why it's, in number 5, it says unless it's,
Right. But the board, you know, the board can act subject to their approval.
right.
Doesn't matter what order these approvals come in.
So it's an added benefit, we're not taking anything
We're
away.
not touching anything because that was already taken away from them.
Okay.
That's the other reason they probably had to go and talk with their lawyer at the time. Basically, what I was told was any added benefit, potentially,
Okay,
they don't have, the union doesn't have an issue with, is what I was told today from Brian, that he said.
But we still
He
need
talked to-
verification.
so if we do
Right.
this step
To do it
2
legal.
of the process, so this would be step 1, then there's a second step, essentially is what you're saying, and what Bob is saying here is.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, we can do 2 steps, that's.
And then also, it's interesting that, there's 88 hours on here, because when I print out any of these, like the FFCRA and different things, you are given 80 hours on any of them.
Right.
80. 2 weeks, 80 hours, however it
That's-
falls.
That's how you guys approved it the last time, though?
And why was that?
Yeah.
I
I
don't.
mean,
couldn't tell
is
you.
that something we're going to stay with, 88?
Could amend
Or
it,
There
though.
must
should
have
it
been
be
a reason
amended
for it,
to
but I don't
80?
remember why.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I don't,
Yeah, because any of them that I've got them all, I printed them all out.
I don't know why.
And there isn't one of them that doesn't say a full-time employee is eligible for 80 hours of leave because of COVID. None of them say 88, so I was
Right.
wondering
unusual.
why
I don't remember.
we were giving them 88.
Would that have to do with a 2-week schedule?
No.
No?
Which,
I think it's
2 weeks
something
is
that the
80
village-
hours.
yeah,
But
I
it
think
wasn't
it's
the
just
original
something
statement that it was
village-
15 days of quarantine, not 2 weeks, it was 15 days.
It was like an extra day.
I thought it was 15
That's when
days
88
of quarantine
hours
when this
comes in.
first started,
Oh.
which is what gives you 88 hours. I think that's what it
No.
stated.
Because it's 14 days of quarantine, but
You
it
mean
was.
with Saturday
At the
and Sunday?
beginning of this thing, it was 15 days.
Mhm.
So we just, someone, you know, when we did it, we did the math, 15 times 8,
Sean is right, that's what it was, it was
and
because
it
it
came up with
originally.
88.
15 times 8
That's
is
not right, that's not
88.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
15 days,
No,
it was
but-
like work week.
Are you an accountant?
Yes.
But they were talking about a work week. A
I'm
work
working on
week, but it could be
all
an extra
week. Give me
day
a
in a work
break.
week. Yeah, I remember that because
But it was
initially when
15 days.
COVID was,
That's all that
was,
matters, I got convinced.
Makes sense to me.
the initial COVID quarantine was 15 days.
But then they updated it on
Mhm. It's been updated.
April 17th.
15 days to me means 5 on, 2 off, 5 on, 2 off, 1.
I get it, I get you, but
Right, but I
that's
think
where
in
that
our
came-
brain, when we
But
did
we're
it,
talking-
it was like, okay, 2 weeks in a day, so it was like 40, 40, and then 1.
Yeah.
Whatever,
And we went, yeah.
I
Right,
don't know.
yeah, and we all said, yeah, okay, makes sense to me.
So you're gonna change that back to 80 then?
It's an update, what is the updated?
Well, now's our chance
quarantine
to
now?
amend it.
8.
We can say
Right.
80.
The updated is,
Well-
is,
Should be updated to 80, but there's still a stipulation in there that the employee can go back to the administrator for added days, so.
Mhm.
And you know, that's the other thing, you know, we're saying, so we're going to leave this as number 4, the village employee, or the employee will be expected to return to work when the results of the test are determined. If the employer exhausts the 88 hours of COVID-19 sick leave, more hours can be given to the employee if determined necessary by the village administrator. We're not going to involve the village board on that. So we just feel, so we've got employees that can go 80 more, 80 more, 80 more. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that should be approved here.
But it could also
This,
be,
this is what, can I just give you some background on why we thought this, is because this has not ever been used for someone positive here. It's been, they were in contact with someone who had it, so we sent them home to go get tested and waited for their test to come back. As we were waiting, they don't get a call until basically right now it's after 3 days, if you don't get a call, you're negative. So then at that point, that employee turned back to work. So that employee, if you think about it, they did 24 hours of COVID sick leave or sick leave. So then you would subtract that from the 80. And that's why I think it's not a single stretch going more. I mean, yeah, it could, but someone could potentially have been tested 3 or 4 times and then finally get sick. And then that would be up to the board. But the issue was, do we want, so if let's say I was with someone who tested positive, I get a call on Tuesday morning, I'm close to my 80 hours, and the administrator's not able to send me home then. Or I was next to someone who tested positive, in general. So the administrator can't send me home if I'm near someone who tested positive, basically is how it is. So if my mom tested positive and I came in and I found out from her, not the county or something, we have nothing currently that we can say, you need to go home and get tested, or you need to go to your physician and get tested before coming back to work. Basically, which was why we kind of decided that potentially the administrator should have the final say. Obviously, you would have a little more leeway that way when it comes to the timing aspect.
it would be rare.
Right, it probably will never happen. The issue is, if something happens in a time period where it's a week and a half before we can get to the village board, it's almost, at that point, safer for the village, at the village side, to send that employee home and then kind of explain the situation at that point.
Rather than have us have a special emergency meeting to
Right.
approve additional hours versus having one point of contact that could approve some additional time until a new test result came back.
Are you saying that there's a potential here for abuse?
There always is.
Yeah.
There
We have it
hasn't
going
been
on
so-
at my work right now.
Right.
We terminate multiple employees because
Right.
every time they come back, oh, I was around somebody.
Yeah.
And they've
I
done
know.
it over and over and over and
Right.
over. And then you see them, jet skiing on the weekend.
I don't think we need to have a board meeting to decide each employee. I think we give the administrator guidelines to follow.
But they're not stated in here, that's the issue.
Yeah, right, correct.
We need to have something definite then. If we're giving the administrator the total control over this, then we need to say what?
Does the Department of
your
Workforce
thoughts.
Development have any guidelines as far as, like, you know what I mean? I don't think it's Department of Health Services, that's
Well,
health, but I'm thinking of
We're
Department
one
of
of the
Workforce.
few municipalities that really
Yeah.
has dedicated so many people to the emergency personnel
Yeah.
that aren't capable of taking family leave, which is fine for a lot of us, but I think in general, yes, the Department of Workforce Development does have some guidelines and some things that you could do, but there are some aspects of our government where we can't send those employees home without fear of potentially having a lawsuit.
Okay,
So if we had language in there that specified a maximum of 80 hours with approval for more, if the need be, and no more than X number of events, 3? I mean, would, otherwise, as you pointed out, and as you said, it could be abused.
Which hasn't been yet,
Yeah,
currently.
but there's a potential.
Right. Right.
Especially going into the fall season,
Mhm.
where flu all of a sudden becomes COVID.
Is that how we wanna word it?
I mean, put some restrictions out there so it's not abused.
What's everyone's thoughts on this?
I think more verbiage needs to be put in there. Also, on number 4, I had the employee is expected to return to work when results of the test are determined, but it doesn't say positive or negative. We don't want them to, and I talked to Nathan about that, he's gonna clean that up.
And a negative.
Based on the current situation too, we probably want to put village administrator or their designee, if I'm not
Yes.
here.
Or
and-
designate,
Yes.
yeah.
So that if we could work with supervisor or something to make that determination.
Yeah,
And basically, you could do that in all of the paragraphs because
Right.
that the village administrator is in.
and the
Right.
village administrator also being that HR person at this point, then you're not running into any trouble with any kind of privacy or like HIPAA laws too. I just don't see I don't think it's gonna be a big deal. I don't think it's gonna be a problem, but yeah, adding the extra verbiage if that's what you wanna do, but I think we're a small enough group of employees here that I just don't, if somebody's abusing it, somebody's gonna rat them out. I mean, it's,
Well, you can always deal with it too.
Yes.
If they're using it, it's gonna be pretty obvious.
yeah, I mean, if
in
you
my
keep
opinion.
doing it over and over again, and, yeah, and
Right.
it's eventually gonna be picked up as, all right,
I would at least put 80 hours in there though.
oh yeah. 80 hours, and you know what I mean, I think the administrator, if you have a red flag that says, okay, we're on like time number 3 here, this employee is
Yeah.
requesting this,
Right.
and you need to pull the board into something like, okay, I really
Right,
believe
right.
that this is true, or, okay, we have a problem, well, then that's a personnel issue, and then that needs to be addressed by that department head, or, yeah.
These dollar amounts are also, they could be claimed with that Road 2 Recovery Act.
Right.
Yeah,
So the only money the village would ever be out would be for the library and the police, because they actually fill the positions when people are gone. So other than work, of course, but financially, there's really no difference, for the admin being gone, because if I'm gone, no one's filling my position. And then anything we can claim for the CARES Act, like they just said, with the PD or the library assessment.
So what are your thoughts? Add the verbiage
I would
And
change the
then-
hours to 80, and I would
and
add some
change it to
verbiage in
80?
there. Definitely add the administrator or acting administrator, whatever that
Appointee.
term, appointee, and
And Jeannie, that might be you.
No.
No?
Any additional concerns could be brought to the board or some
I would
verbiage
imagine
to
if
that?
To the
it's, yeah,
administrator.
Yeah.
if it's elevated, well then, okay,
Right.
then elevate it,
Yeah,
great, but I
and
think
if we
it,
need to put that in there, I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah, then we could just,
Any concerns should be brought to the board.
yeah. And this is nitpicking, but the third bullet point under number 3 maybe could be worded a little bit better after the comma. It's a little confusing, but that's nitpicking, I apologize.
yeah, it is kind of stumbling.
Maybe drop the
What
goal.
would you like to see in there, Pat?
Let's see.
To get tested.
Drop the goal to get tested due to being in close contact with someone who has tested positive. Have Ally check it, Nathan.
Whom is actually the correct verbiage, I believe.
What?
Yeah.
She did it?
No,
Oh. She checked the letter I wrote.
but I can have her look it over for you if it makes you feel.
And then Bob, what did you say we should, approve it with the changes, and then pending
Yes, pending.
getting the approval from the,
Absolutely.
union?
Yeah, and I'd say, so you'd approve it, anticipating approval by the union, and if that's not forthcoming, we would come back and formally rescind. So, you know,
Did you
just
get
to
all
put-
that, Jane?
No.
Well, if the approval of the union isn't forthcoming, then that would be referred back to the board, and we have documentation that that resolution was in fact rescinded.
And then also, how do you figure that when you do the police, they work 12-hour shifts. So it would just be, however, it adds up to 80 and then that would be it. So it's not an 8-hour, sick day, it's a 12-hour sick day.
When they take a sick day or a vacation day, if, every day except for a Sunday they work 8-hour shifts.
Okay,
So it would be a 12-hour shift that they would have to take. So when they take vacation, when they're given a week vacation, it's 40 hours, and they end up breaking that up, so it's really not a week vacation for them.
okay, so that would be figured the same way. Okay, that makes sense.
And refresh my memory with the union contract. Is there anything specific in there that defines the SRO differently than regular officers? Because the SROs, I mean, with school starting, I guess is what I'm wondering. Is there anything we need to consider when we're doing this, that the SROs are considered separate, or no? Okay,
So,
They're within that union contract.
okay.
I have a late to the party question here. So on 3, it's, the employees will be provided 80 hours of COVID sick leave. Is that 80 hours on top of their current sick leave? Or do they currently have to use their sick leave before?
So the COVID sick on top.
I mean, what's the point of sick leave if you get sick and you're not using it? I mean, isn't that the point of the reason why in employment contracts we give sick leave, is so that way you could use it if you get sick?
I think it's good because of mandatory quarantine.
I understand
Yeah.
that, but if you get the flu, we don't give you, or you get the common cold, we don't give you cold sick leave on top of, you
The issue
get
is we
sick
can't
leave to
send-
start with, and then,
We can't send people home
okay,
to say, go home, you've been in contact with someone, unless the county has actually contacted them. That's the issue. So, this is kind of what the state did, the federal government did anyway, when they came in and did this.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I'm
this
yeah.
right, this
I'm
goes
asking a
away.
question because it doesn't say in here
Right.
how the accounting practice takes care of that, because that's in my thought process is that sick leave is for when you get sick. I mean, if you don't have any sick days,
Right,
then
there's a lot of
we're
people-
giving you 80 because you don't have any, but that could be one way to look at it, or if you have,
But there's some
73 sick days on
Yeah,
the
but I think-
books.
Yeah, but I think the answer is this is a pandemic.
Yeah,
That's the answer.
okay. Well,
Some employees
that's
might-
not an answer.
They might not wanna use their
As
sick
to-
leave, so they'll say, well, I don't think I got it, but I'm gonna still work here and be in contact with all you people. I don't need to tell you
Okay,
that I was in contact with someone.
Right.
So it kind of opens up the window so that you can
It's,
be honest and then,
in a normal sick
Right.
situation, right, you don't have the community spread as much, right? So, I mean, the way to deal with this pandemic necessitates that type of action. That's the difference.
And I'm coming late to the party too,
yeah,
with this, but my understanding, and you guys can back me up on this, I hope, that the federal government has allowed everybody, all employees, certain things under the federal regulations. That this is really just a response and say, okay, rather than you applying and getting those federal benefits, we're gonna give you these benefits, correct?
right, because the
To
federal
offset,
benefits kind of
so
make
that
it
you don't
seem-
take this other leave, we're gonna say you can have an extra number of days.
okay.
Correct.
I'm just making sure I understand, because it's
Yeah,
not.
but correct me if I'm wrong here, but any funds for these 80 hours would be reimbursed under the CARES Act anyway.
We
Correct.
would, right.
So it's no
We would
money
apply
out of
for
our
that.
pocket.
Yeah, and we're not close to hitting that cap at this point, right?
Oh,
but-
no.
No, but there's also, we have to take into consideration, there's a deadline of November 7th.
Okay.
So November 7th, so I think it's November 6th, so November 7th to November 15th, we can apply for round 3.
Okay.
There's 3 different rounds, so we didn't apply for round 1 because we were still establishing or getting our bills, so we're getting them September 1st through September 15th, we can apply for round 2.
Okay.
So, and I don't know, because we've been extending different orders that they're putting out there, they might extend this until the middle of next year.
I think it'll be extended personally, but, I mean, this is such an unusual circumstance. I don't think that this is going to be a permanent fixture in HR world in Hortonville. I think it's gonna eventually be something that,
It ends on the 31st.
correct, I mean, it has a sunset date,
Right.
and we need to revisit that if it needs to be extended, but we're only committing ourselves to this for how many more months? I mean, really,
We've had less than
Yeah,
80 total
Yeah.
amongst all staff so far, I believe.
yeah, it just doesn't say it in there, so I'm trying to understand,
Right.
you know, 'cause
Yeah.
there's
Cindy
another,
got instructions from Civic, our accounting software, it's a whole process that she has to do in the accounting software, which ended up taking payroll, I don't know, another day or two this week, but she got it all done, but it's kinda complicated. 'Cause we've
There,
got
and
22
and her
employees.
time should be under that CARES Act too.
correct.
Okay.
okay.
Nathan, part-time and full-time employees are the same, or is that,
That's kind of what this is.
is that, so if somebody part-time, do they get paid their regular hours, or?
The regular hours.
Okay,
So yes, people on part-time technically would have, you know, instead of 2 weeks, they would have 4, up to, depending,
To hit
because
the
of the
80
hours.
Yeah, they
Yeah, the way
would
they
add the
work.
2 weeks together and average it out.
Yeah.
That's what they would get, is how they're saying it. So,
okay.
okay? So then we would need, motion with all those changes,
Can we get it written up first, or is there
Or-
any push to vote on it now and later, Nathan, or?
Well, we have to get
We
approval
have
from,
already started doing some of these, so we will have to reverse some of the payments we've done so far because of the issues that came up. So, I don't know.
What do you mean we have to reverse some of the payments, what are you talking about?
Well, some of the people we've already sent home and
Oh,
with
you
their,
mean if they don't approve this tonight?
well, potentially, because if,
Well,
depending on what,
they're planning to.
Right.
Yeah, they're planning to.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
don't
what
think we
it's
need to
up to
reverse it.
Bob.
I think you're looking at the next meeting, right? So
Yeah, so,
Or what are the actual, aren't there just a couple changes that, or you don't feel comfortable, making those, I guess, tonight?
is that what we do? Do it pending
Otherwise, we
the
can
changes
wait.
being made, we do the approval and getting the union, like Bob stated, and, you know, changing the 80 to 80 hours, and then whatever else we all said. Did you get it all, Jane?
I think so,
Okay,
I think so.
And Nathan, is
So
it, are we
why
gonna
don't you
change
write-
it?
Jane, why don't you just restate the changes as you know them, and let's see if we can.
Okay, number 3, all general village employees will be provided up to 80 hours of COVID. The next change was down to the 3rd bullet point. The employee has been directed by the Department of Health, Ed, and Village Administrator to get tested due to being in close contact with someone who has tested positive.
That one you have to put in the, or designated,
designated village administrator.
Okay.
whoever.
Anywhere there's an administrator.
Okay,
Yeah,
Any concerns, another bullet point, any concerns should be brought to the board. Then number 4, the employee will be expected to return to work when results of the test are negative.
mhm.
And then at the bottom, by the village administrator or their designee, and that'll be anywhere in there where it talks about the administrator.
Number 4, you changed that one to 80 as well.
Yes,
Okay.
and are we going with all village employees or all general employees? Did we ever figure that out?
I thought it was all general village, I can put all general employees or all general village.
You had read it as general, and I just wanted to make sure how that works.
Should just add a general, I think,
Okay.
it's general village, right?
Yep,
the other point I would probably make is that when you talk about coming before the board, it should have some language in there about suspected abuse.
any concerns regarding suspected abuse should be brought to the board.
That
I
might
would,
be, that might be better after the 4th bullet point, or, I mean, after number 4, since that's where we're
Yeah.
talking about
Mhm.
going back to the.
I agree.
Okay.
And then-
Anything else?
Doing this, does that then get the balls rolling for, or get the wheels turning for what you need to do or what we need to do with the unions? For the second step of this, is this enough to, or do we need to do something further?
well,
think-
they're not gonna sign it until the board signs it.
Yeah,
right.
It's their process, so
okay.
it, not
Well, I mean,
necessarily.
I think if we say we approve it with those amendments, number 5 covers the fact that they need to get it approved by
Okay.
for the police, so then if we approve this with the amendments, the agreed amendments,
It gives him.
that
the-
should give him,
Right.
once he has it, the ability to send it to them for approval, which then means everything is rolling.
That's what I want to make sure.
Or
We're
does
not,
it explicitly have to be an amendment to the collective bargaining agreement?
Yes,
and that would be
I-
something.
I-
Has to be
I-
attached.
Review.
Yeah, I'm thinking that a general amendment that we're passing
Yeah.
doesn't meet the qualifications for
it does not.
an amendment, a direct amendment to the contract with the police department.
No,
The
but it's,
amendment has to be signed by those 4 people, just like the contract was.
I mean,
Any amendment that's attached to
But this should allow them to start drafting that amendment if we
Yeah,
have
yeah,
this approved.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that, it's
Yes.
gotta be it's
this
gotta be a
isn't putting
parallel
a wedge
process.
in anybody's
This needs to be in place
wheels
before we
turning.
can
Okay.
do that amendment.
Just want to make sure that they have the tools to just continue, especially if we don't have a board meeting the early part of September. I would hate to make this wait until the end of September.
So we need a board, a vote on this?
We need
A
a
motion.
motion, and yes, we need a second.
Well, I'll make the motion, but I'm not going to repeat everything. So everything that, all the notes that pertain to this, that Jane has taken, I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Can that be emailed to all of us to make sure all the changes were put in there, please?
Yes, and we've corrected the spelling of sergeant on the second page also.
Okay,
We have a motion on the floor.
I
okay.
seconded it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. G, approval of final plot Wildwind Phase 2.
I think me and Bob are gonna talk about this, but first I'm gonna go back about, and cover some items that were initially brought before the board about a month ago. The permit for the wetlands disturbance for Blue Duck Court was approved. That's one of the courts way in the very back. The DOA preliminary plat has been approved, and I had that in a packet approximately a month ago, so I don't have it tonight, again, I apologize for that. But the DOA approved the preliminary plat, which is all they do. The Department of Natural Resources NOI, which is a notice of intent for stormwater, has been approved. Engineered review plan sets have been updated and supplied to both me and Ron Wolf and approved. The project manual bid specs have been produced and distributed for bid. Apparently there's a low bidder that they're ready to move forward with. The letter of credit, which is a biggie, has been supplied to the village and filed away in the Wildland 2 subdivision folder. That letter of credit covers the village in case they default in any aspect of the construction process. As far as the engineer, Ron Wolf, he reviewed and written a statement that we have on file for the subdivision and Public Works. All of the prerequisites are met for the engineering review. There's 4 items that still need to be kind of taking place. I'll let Bob speak on them.
Sure.
They're italicized in the bottom of my report that I handed you.
Yeah, and actually, there's 2 others that I'll talk to, but, first off, we do need confirmation that the contract with R&R Wash Materials, because that's the letter of credit's based on that bid. And do you have that, Jim? The contract with R&R,
Yeah, well, when we talked to Carl, we can't sign it until I get this approved.
It's kind of a chicken and egg thing. But
Okay.
if you can do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
yep, that's fine.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that the village would want to see. So what we're looking at here is, I think, I would be asking for a motion to approve the final plat, subject to certain things being done, subsequent here. So one is just to confirm the low bid contract, it was like $906,000 or something. That, if that number's in place, then these,
Well, that, we took the asphalt out.
Yep, understood.
Yeah.
Yep, adjusted, they
Yeah.
had the whole thing in it, that's true. It was minus 67, something like that.
Okay, so you
Yep.
want that contract signed with them tomorrow?
Yes,
Okay. we do
Yep.
that.
okay. We've already authorized the signing of the development agreement. We were just holding up on that until the letter of credit came from the bank. We do have that now, that was provided this morning, like Carl said. So, you've already approved, Jeannie and Jane signing that development agreement. We can do that tonight, and Jim can do it here as well, and then that's done, okay? Those other two items there on the bullet points really come afterwards. They're not conditions of the final plat approval here. I'm just gonna get a courtesy copy of the restrictive covenants once they're recorded. We've approved the restrictive covenants. We know what's in there. I just want a recorded copy, and that comes after the fact. The next one would be the recording of the development agreement and our notice of future assessments, and we'll take care of that too, again, afterwards, so that's not a prerequisite. There is a deeding, right now the land is still in Jim's name as we speak, but that's being deeded over. Attorney Greg Curtis is handling that. I'm satisfied that that's being done.
Should be done tomorrow morning.
Yep, so it'll be in James Land Company, which is, everything else is in that, so it's subject to that being done. And then the last thing is, Jim, there's, you gotta pay the outstanding real estate tax,
Oh,
and it's $528.62.
I'll get my checkbook.
Yep.
Yeah, no problem.
So, unless there's questions, we'd ask that the final plat be approved at this time, subject to the payment of the real estate taxes, the confirmation of the contract with R&I Wash Materials, and signing of the development agreement, and the completion of the deeding of the land. Okay? So I see no reason, and in this case, let me just speak as to those conditions. I don't think any of them are an issue. I don't see a problem with this. Normally, we would want that taken care of and bring this in front of you, so you simply do an motion to approve the final plat, period. But not knowing when our next meeting is, given the timing here, that's kind of critical at this time of year for lot sales, we wanted to accommodate the developer.
Yeah, we really scrambled this week, Bob. I just bought $20,000 of deeds, wiped them out to get the surveyors in there. And we sold 15 lots this week, maybe 16, 15 for sure. And we sold 16. And Jason Maine wants to get in as soon as possible, start building homes. He wants to get basements in there this fall yet. So, right now, we get this approved tonight, we don't have to wait. Because in the tail end, you know what the weather's like, and September, October, we get 2 weeks of rain. We got some beautiful weather here, we can get rolling on this.
Questions?
Carl, any more concerns?
We need a motion, won't we?
Or just, okay. Is there a concern on
We were just
Oh,
discussing.
no.
Yeah,
something else?
Nothing with that.
Sorry.
Okay, Dan, you had a question?
I apologize.
Carl, any other concerns you have out there?
No. I think we've, looked this up one side, down the other.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the final plat for Wildland Phase 2 with the 4 stipulations that Bob just detailed.
I'll second.
Roll call, Dan?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. HR 21-20, final special assessment, Warner Street.
I believe the final engineering report is in your packet. Exact dollar figures shown in the schedule, final assessment that are at the back end of the engineering report. As you can see, we had 2 contract modifications. One would have been for the paving, and the second one's for the striping, for a total of $148,670. This is about $7,000 cheaper than what we had originally estimated. And the publishing of this and sending it to the affected property owners will take place after the meeting tonight. Again, I'm looking for a motion to approve R 21-20 final special assessment Warren Street. I don't know if there's anything you got to say on that, Bob. It's pretty straightforward.
No, I have nothing to add.
The catch basin cost was in there also, right?
Say that
The
again.
catch basin repair cost was in there also? The catch basin?
Yeah,
and the-
yeah, that was part of the 145.
I'll make a motion to approve R-21-20,
Second?
final special assessment for Werner Street.
Second?
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Motion carried. I, potential cancellation of next village board meeting, September 3rd, 2020. And then we are talking about moving that board meeting because you said you had a lot of things that needed to be on that board meeting.
I think staff was worried that cutting a board meeting out of when we have 4 left before budget, that it might stress and add a lot on, just different board meetings, and we might have very long board meetings coming up. So if we could just move that date, if you guys are gonna be gone, or, I don't know.
I'm not going.
Are people going to be gone on the 3rd? September 3rd?
I might
That's
have,
Labor Day weekend,
Yeah.
right?
Right before
Thursday
Labor Day
before,
weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, school starts before
yeah,
that.
I might
Probably.
have
Oh, it
a
does.
I probably won't.
conflict, my voice of a doctor's appointment that afternoon, but I would just be coming a little late maybe.
So should we leave it on the 3rd?
I will
Slick,
go on.
you're gonna be out of
I'll be
town?
gone too.
Oh, you're gonna be gone?
Possibly.
And
I
Chris?
could call in if I'm.
Do you
Maybe.
wanna move it to the 10th? We would have one on
Deadline.
September 10th and September 17th then. So it'd be 2 weeks in a row.
It would
What
free
about
up,
doing it
I mean, there's
earlier?
gonna be quite a few people
What
gone.
about the Wednesday, this day before?
Well, I think for his,
No,
well,
We were hoping, well, I think the discussion too is we're getting into budget period, and that maybe there's a different way to handle some of this, and I don't know how you've done it in the past, like maybe budget workshops, instead of, all doing everything on one night, maybe have a special budget workshop every now and then.
Last year's budget was very concise, very well organized, and we didn't have a lot of issues with it. It got passed real quick, if you recall that. I mean, it was probably one of the slickest I've ever seen in the 6 or 7 years I've been on the board. So I don't perceive, personally, a lot of issues.
I'm just hearing from some people that maybe there's some questions, initial questions, framing questions, kind of, that need to be handled, and then maybe the slickness can come after that.
Well-
Once that, there's that framing of issues and questions. But I'm not sure, we had talked about possibly, I'd like to get this guy here from PAA as well, to have a discussion with you on the proposal, or get that proposal in front of you. Like, he's free on the 31st, which is a Monday of that week. I don't know if that might be a possibility.
You're running into the Black Otter Lake District annual meeting.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
And I'm at the VA for tests all day, so that,
That's kinda out of.
Monday won't work.
no.
no.
what about the 10th, if we just have a committee of the whole, do we,
The 10th of September?
Just moving it 1 week further out. So, it's not a full board meeting, just a committee of the whole to discuss some of these preliminary budget items.
Does that make
Yeah, I
sense?
won't be at the following meeting, but I'm pretty well.
I think that makes sense.
yeah, I think we can do some of the
There's
stuff.
nothing you need board action for to
Well,
kind
solidify
of.
anything or not?
Kind of a thing, right?
Well,
I don't know.
let's go up there, I may push that off till next year, I just don't have time to write up that
I can see how quickly too this proposal might come together from PAA, and then you could decide if you wanted to have that would be a closed session. So maybe you could have a special night, just be a closed session for that discussion. I don't know if you ever do that or not.
We have.
Mhm.
So what if we just eliminated the 3rd and just did the 10th as a committee of the whole with a possibility of a closed session if the,
Well, I'd like to actually do that before, if
Oh,
I
okay.
can. We could talk about that.
Why
But
can't we do one of them on the 3rd?
Yeah, who was missing on the third?
It appears everybody It's gonna be around.
Except
Jane's
Jane and Chris.
Jane and Chris.
Oh,
Oh, you guys are gone?
Nathan, are you
Yeah.
gonna
Oh,
take
I don't-
over
I don't
for
have a
Jane
life.
then? You're gone?
No, I'm here.
You got a
you're
little
here.
one, that's true.
Okay.
I'll be here.
I might not be here.
Okay.
I
My
may be
plans
late,
aren't set.
that, yeah, to a doctor's appointment, but other than that,
I think our discussion for some of these questions.
Yeah.
We just, like the 10th would work for that.
Okay.
And then I could talk with Jeannie once I find out more, and maybe you could decide how you wanna handle a meeting with the PAA proposal.
And Bob, you never leave town, do you?
Like, can
See,
we
he's
do it
always here.
different?
We can always call a special
Yeah.
board meeting.
Yeah, what's wrong with the, is there a problem with the second?
Why can't we do it on the
Wednesday.
second,
Yeah, is there a problem with the second?
Which would be a Wednesday?
a Wednesday? Why
Not
can't we
with
do
me.
that first meeting on the
Is
second?
there with you?
No,
I don't have an issue with the
Jane
second.
and Chris, would you be here then?
which would be Wednesday before Labor Day weekend.
Yes.
Let's just
Is
keep a
that one
regular board
okay?
meeting then.
Should we
Yeah, just
maybe
move it a
move that
day.
to September second? Could we do that?
We could, I mean, my guy might not be, he's gone that week, so that's why he couldn't come, but maybe he can do something around another night, you know, if you're
Yeah.
willing to consider that.
But at least if we moved the 3rd to the 2nd, it would enable a couple of department heads to be here for, especially if,
For answering the questions that they have on their
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So, are you available the 2nd, Dave?
Yeah, is that a Wednesday?
Yeah,
It's a Wednesday.
Yeah. Are we able to, we're able to frame our questions by
I think so. Well,
Yeah.
it's just budgetary, there might be some agenda items that might pop up between now and then.
then? Okay.
So I think a regular board meeting, just move it up one day and it may be a quick one.
Yeah. Just,
I just hate to eliminate it totally,
yeah,
Let's do
Yeah.
that.
especially this time of year.
And
Would it be
then,
good to have a half-hour committee to hold before that, so we,
Maybe. I guess it depends on what's on there.
Yeah, we can see it.
why are you moving
Yeah,
on the
maybe,
calendar?
just look and see what
Yeah.
comes up
Just
between now and then.
if we have to
determine
follow
whether it's
make
needed.
it a little more fluid?
We'll play on the board. If we gotta do a cal, we'll do a cal.
yeah? So then we're gonna skip the 10th? And go to our normal board meeting on the 17th.
Yeah, and like I said, you guys can work something out with Dave for another night for his guy.
For a closed session.
Yeah.
And that could potentially be the 10th if need, you know, however quick. So we moved the
Or-
3rd to the 2nd.
Yeah. it will
Or
be-
maybe I could present the proposal if he can't be here possibly too.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, that's an option too.
yeah,
Okay,
But you do need a vote on that,
oh,
because that's our
yeah,
ordinance
because
is-
we're changing
Yeah.
the date and time, so we'll need a motion and a vote.
I
What
will make,
time? 6, normal?
I'll make a motion to move the September 3rd board meeting to September 2nd at 6 PM.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. J, any other miscellaneous topics for future discussions? None? We'll move to 9, report of village officials. A, interim administrator.
Really nothing else besides what we talked about, except I am trying to learn more from the staff about what they're doing and also the budget questions that we're talking about, and hoping that I could facilitate a little bit and maybe put another fresh set of eyes on things, so, hope that's kind of like where we're at right now, where I'm at, trying to learn more from them and, again, help facilitate moving forward.
All right, any questions for Dave? We'll move to B, clerk treasurer.
I just had, we did have a 19.5% voter turnout for the August 11th primary. There were a total of 333 absentee ballots mailed, 187 ballots were returned to be counted. Chris has taken on the CARES grant, she's working on that, which I appreciate, thank you for that. Other than that, I think that's all I have.
Any questions for Jane? We'll move to C, director of public works.
Just a couple. I know we had talked about the recycling event last time, and I had that in there. We're actually up 30% over the prior year, or last year, which is good, but it's a record volume, I should say. Out Mill Reserve Fund, I know I came to the board last time about using reserve funds for the installation of the underground electrical utilities. But being on vacation last week, I didn't really have time to deal with, going out for bids or trying to write up bid specs for that, so I'm gonna try and get something done before the next board meeting. Some other notes about the outdoor rec plan. I went back to talk to Trish a little bit, went back to our records just to see what kind of grants we received due to having that. These are just some of the ones off the top of my head that I've done since I've been here that we were eligible for. One thing I don't have on here is your TAP grants and some of your other multimodal grants will also depend upon having a comprehensive park plan. So it is worthwhile, and it's something that all the local governments do, including the state. So I just wanted everybody to be aware of the ramifications behind passing that. So that's about all I have. Anybody have any questions for me?
Thanks for getting that information, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it was good for me, it was a good question, I had to go back and dig that up. Now, there's only certain DNR statutes, but when it comes to like TAP grants, your federal highway grants, some of those you have to have a park plan, some of those you only get points, extra points for having a park plan. So there may not be a state law that's gonna fine us for not having a comp plan, but I think you can see that when it comes to Wisconsin Disaster Fund or catastrophic storm grants from the DNR, that's vitally important that we play by their rules, and one of their rules is having a comp plan. So.
2013 was a nasty year, wasn't it?
Was.
Yes, it was.
Wow.
Yeah, that was awful.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. We spent much more than that. So.
It was bad.
Any other questions?
Figure out anything with the cameras out at wastewater yet?
I haven't, not being a man down, and it's just.
Okay.
I think what we're going to do, Jim, is with that is not stress so much about it, but I might put a couple $1,000 more into dealing with the brush, and just kind of let things slide a little bit. So.
Okay.
And we've been invested a ton of money in systems and everything, but I've been working with, there's potential for a regional brush site in the near future between a couple of municipalities. So I don't think we should invest too much into what we have right now.
Okay.
So.
I have one more thing to say under mine. RFPs for auditors are gonna be going out soon. Because our contract is done with the auditors that we have, so.
Okay.
That's good, thank you. We'll go to D, Police Chief.
Don't have a whole lot, we have the drive over, get pulled over, campaign that's starting, with the state, that's August 21st through September 7th. Working on the road to recovery, so Julie's been helping me with that too. There's just spreadsheets, a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of collecting of receipts and stuff like that that need to be collected, so hopefully we can submit the first round, or I should say it would be our first round, but it's round 2 by September 15th.
Thanks, Chris. Library Director.
Why
is-
did these end up on my desk?
We're supposed to go to Pat.
That's why.
Get her mail, you get her stuff, and
Yeah, well,
And I
have
get
all
a
the
pay,
rest of their mail.
I get a pay stub, Dave's pay stub.
This is why I get paid out of it.
There's flyers for the swag bags.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Library Director is out. F, Attorney.
I have nothing else. Okay.
G is Building Permit Report, there is none in the packet. H, Court Report, there is none in the packet. 10, Communications and Miscellaneous Business. A, Black Otter Lake District News.
Annual meeting is a week from Monday, the 31st at 6 o'clock.
Got Alonso.
At Alonzo. Peter speaking.
Bring a dish to pass?
No,
Okay.
no. We're going to plan that between Meg O'Brien and myself. We're making sure we do it the right way.
How many do you normally get there?
Oh, I think we had, do you remember last year, Jeannie, maybe 25?
Okay.
Yeah,
I'd say at least,
yeah,
yeah,
it helps to have food.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
No beer.
Nope.
B is Hortonville, Hortonia Fire District news.
Next meeting's next Tuesday, so there's nothing today.
Okay. C, Gold Cross Ambulance Run Report news, there's none. D, Hortonville Civic Association,
Nothing.
nothing. E, Senior Activities Committee.
We're meeting this coming Thursday, or a week from today. We'll have a full committee meeting at 1 o'clock. I think I mentioned at the last meeting, we're, planning a drive-through Autumn Fest for the 23rd. We're running into some glitches regarding, the lunch, but we'll make final decision on that on Thursday.
Okay, we'll go to 11, comments and suggestions from citizens present. There's none. 12, I would need a motion to appoint a minute taker for closed session. I will appoint Shauna.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. 13, motion to go into closed session.
Who's got the thing?
I'll make a motion to go into closed session under state statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session.
Roll call, Dan?
Aye. Second?
Yeah, second.
Oops,
Okay.
sorry.
Pat got
I
it.
second.
Pat got it.
Sorry.
Pat got it?
Yeah.
Okay, Dan?
Aye.
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 All right.
Okay, we are now 5 minutes to close the meeting room.
Never mind,
Uh,
never mind.
Not this one.
We'll find a way to pay for it. There might be a budget amendment.
17 is any action on matters discussed in closed session.
None.
Then I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second? You
Second.
second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are now adjourned.